good friend, Urban Miyares.
Thank you. Well, thank you. It's exciting. I mean, all you HR people here, it's a wonderful, great opportunity for me. I'm looking for a job. You know, when I say that, your eyes give an impression right away. It said that in the second, or less than a second, what you see when you see a person is already sending a message to your brain. A message of, do you like that person or don't like them? Their body posture, how they're dressed, the colors will all be messages to your brain. You ever see anybody and instantly you say, I don't like that person? That's that message, that instant message. And I hope to let you know that sometimes sight is a terrible thing to have. And give you a little story about myself on that. But if I say I'm looking for a job, you're going to say, well, I need more information. Well, let me give you a little resume about myself to start off with. Let's start medically. You know, I'm total blind. I'm hard of hearing. I have traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic stress, or PTSD, as mostly known. I've had my thyroid removed. I have type 1 diabetes. I've had a kidney transplant. I have spinal cord injury at C2, C3, upper neck, as well as spinal arthritis in the lower back. I have peripheral neuropathy in both my legs, nerve damage. As a matter of fact, in competitive sports for the disabled Paralympics, I'm classified as total blind, which is known as B for blind 1, and also as a walking paraplegic. So, you have a job for me yet? See, the more information you get can be better or worse. But let me give you some more information. I grew up in New York City, born and raised there, went to high school, graduated high school, and a young lady I knew from the neighborhood, since I was 13 years of age, we fell in love at 18. Planned to get married. We didn't date earlier. She only lived 5 blocks away from where I lived. I lived right in Manhattan, in the Yorkville section. And I lived on 73rd Street, she lived on 71st Street. But her older brother said, stay away from my sister. So that's why until 18, before we got together, we planned to get married. And then I got that notice from Uncle Sam drafting me into the Army. Went into the Army, and company commander during training gave me a weekend pass to go home and get married. Went home, got our marriage certificate on Friday. Saturday, we got married. And Sunday, I was back on the base. A one-night stand. She did it for her country, so we've got to, please. By the way, we'll be married 49 years this November. Yeah. And I always tease everybody, there was nothing wrong with me when we got married. Now look. So, a few months later, after training, I'm on a plane to Vietnam, 11 Bravo, 9th Infantry Division, south of Saigon, working the Delta. I got to be an infantry sergeant, and we were going out one morning, early morning, on an operation, and I just felt something was wrong. I was sick. And we went out, the choppers in, to take us to a landing zone where we were walking on the village by the rice paddies on the rice stocks, and suddenly I felt strange, lightheaded. Felt like I was floating. And then so I heard someone yell. I heard the M60 machine guns and the automatic weapons go off in the mortar. And then as if someone threw a bucket of water in my face. 2 days later, I woke up in the Saigon military hospital, tubes coming out of me where they told me I was one lucky grunt. Someone found me alive in a body bag and saved my life. It wasn't until 38 years later before I met Brian Leet, the combat medic who lives in Cambridge, Minnesota, who worked in the morgue at base camp, was toe tagging dead soldiers and found me breathing. Don't know what happened in those 2 days, and I don't think it'll ever be reaccounted because, you know, in Vietnam, records were not kept, records weren't there to what's going on. So after in Saigon for a couple of weeks to get me stable, I went to Japan, spent a number of weeks there to get me medically stable, shipped me back to the United States, and was shipped to Valley Forge Hospital in Pennsylvania, where I stayed for the next 6 months. There, reuniting with my wife again, they told me that at best I had 20 years left to live. 1968. And I said, well, what can I do for a living? They said, well, your medical condition, we recommend a desk job at best, if you could even do that. Well, fortunately, we had a friend who worked in Wall Street, and a Wall Street firm, 14 Wall Street, was willing to take me on as an apprentice. And when I got out of the hospital and back home, I started work. But I really wasn't that disabled. My wife got pregnant right away, so I still had some working parts. So Charlie didn't get me altogether. I was dangerous. I worked for this Wall Street firm, an apprentice, for a number of months. Our child was born, and then they called me into the office where there was a man, executive from this Wall Street company, this Wall Street firm, and said, you're a veteran, aren't you? This is 1969, just before the Woodstock of August 17th, I believe, 1969. I said, yes, I am. He said, well, what'd you do in the service? I told him I was infantry. And they said, we're not having any needle-toting, baby-killing Vietnam veterans working for this company, and fired me. I know that wouldn't happen today. It's illegal to happen today. But I can tell you it was devastating to me. I went home and got the bottle of booze and started drinking, and decided, well, let me at least go to the VA Voc Rehab. And I went to VA Vocational Rehabilitation, where they tested me and came back with, you only have a high school diploma. Your medical prognosis is not that good. It's really not. Why don't you just stay home and take it easy? Wait to die is what I heard. So like any other disabled vet, I went and started a business. And we had 4 businesses. None of them made it. I was so angry and frustrated. There wasn't anybody to help vets, especially disabled vets in business. Yeah, I was one of those vets that dressed up in my uniform and walked in New York City and got spit on and cursed at. And I've only worn my uniform once. City after city, 4 businesses failing. We finally wound up in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because my wife's family had retired, her parents retired and moved there, and we figured I might as well go there. And after trying another business not working, there was a restaurant up for sale, a little Italian restaurant that served 38 people, and they wanted to get out. They owed a lot of money. So I took the business over, taking all their expenses, no money down. 3 years later, we had a restaurant growing to 440 seated with an appraised value of $2.3 million. 25 years of age. They thought I had a heart attack, was at the hospital for quite a while. They said I was working too hard, and we sold the business. Eventually moving to San Diego in 1977. And then, feeling a little bit better, started some more businesses. And needless to say, one business after the other. In the last 48 years, I've owned 23 different businesses. Vocational rehabilitation was right. I could never get a job. I can only create them. You know, as they say in that, in the 23 businesses, I've had 16 partners. All able-bodied, most of them veterans, but all able-bodied when we went into business. They're all worried about me and my health. I buried 12 of those partners. My wife says, don't go in business with my husband, he'll kill you. I've employed thousands of people, and I'm proud to say many of them veterans. So I know what it is to be on the other side. To be, well, you know what a boss is backwards, right? A double SOB? So I know what that is too. Well, in the business career, one business after the other, eventually in San Diego, I've owned companies in manufacturing, steel fabrication, electronics, printed circuit boards. As a matter of fact, the Tomahawk missile and a lot of nuclear warhead missiles, Novenko Electronics did the printed circuitry. A blind guy running a country doing circuitry on nuclear warheads. The public knew about that. And I've been very fortunate. San Diego is an example. The Small Business Administration, I was the first business person in San Diego ever to win the National SBA Business Award. I've been Inc. Magazine's Entrepreneur of the Year. I've been invited by presidents of the United States to have lunch with them at the White House. My wife loves lunch at the White House. You don't have to leave a tip there, by the way, if you go there. I've been fortunate to be receive honors and recognition with some of the very well-known people in the country, both entertainers, sports figures, and so forth. And with sports, in 1987, the Department of Veterans Affairs had the very first winter sports clinic in Grand Junction, Colorado. And they asked me if I wanted to go skiing. I've never been on a pair of skis in my life. I'm total blind, I don't hear well, I don't feel my legs, and they want me to go down the mountain. I did it. In 1990 and 91, I was world champ and rated the world's fastest total blind skier, being clocked on the race course at 63 miles an hour. I was the first disabled athlete in the Hall of Champions Museum here in San Diego. Also at the same time, as some of you know, and thank you for those that know me from the past coming up and saying hi, I've involved with sailing, 2 veterans in wheelchairs, starting a program in 1978. It was the first program, adaptive sailing program in the world, which started right here in San Diego. A program called Challenge America. And not only did we put people with severe and significant disabilities in boats and throw them on San Diego Bay and hope they come back alive, we crossed the Pacific. I've skipped in a boat twice from Los Angeles to Hawaii with an all-disabled crew in the Trans-Pacific Yacht Race, 2003 and 2005. And we did not finish last. Matter of fact, one America's Cup sailor, who we beat in the race, said, "Challenged my ass." Us veterans are doing some amazing things right now, especially in business. In 1985, because of my frustration, I began a pilot program with the Department of Veterans Affairs, helping severely disabled vets who couldn't get work, help them talk about self-employment and starting a business. And of course, that has led to the Disabled Businesspersons Association, which is still around today in San Diego, based in San Diego State. It's an all-volunteer organization of successful business owners with disabilities, most of us veterans. We help people with disabilities, mostly severe and significant disabilities, start and run businesses. I probably talk more veterans out of going into business than I do in business, because we have to compete in the able-bodied world. I have to compete in your world. Just think about me blindfolding you and you competing in my world. Put you on a pair of skis, we'll find out who's handicapped real quick. So that's pretty much my resume, I'm telling you right now. Do I have a job in your company now?
Yes.
Hey, I'll talk to you later.
Okay.
In 1991, I did a speech for pharmaceutical executives in Connecticut, to give you an example. And after my speech, William Steele, CEO, chairman of the board of Pfizer, came up and says, "Urban, we're looking for someone to head our pharmaceutical company in Europe. Could you handle the marketing department?" And then he went on to tell me what my starting salary would be. It was more than an E5 sergeant salary, let me guarantee you that. I said, "Mr. Steele," I said, "there's only one job I'm qualified for at Pfizer." He said, "What's that job?" "Yours. I have no skills, I only know how to run a company." So right now we're in a society where CDC is saying 1 out of every 4 people has a mental illness. That means at every table, one of you has a mental illness. And if there are 3 people who don't want to be at that table, come up here and I'll be your 4th. Because I am diagnosed with mental illness, with post-traumatic stress. and including traumatic brain injury. It's also estimated that 75% of the people of working age out there now wouldn't qualify to be in the military. Either they have a criminal record, they physically couldn't handle the entry into the military, have a disability, or other reason. So as a business owner, it makes sense to look at veterans first, because our military service has already screened the public, and they're sending us their best, regardless of their physical or mental condition. And HR, you too, should look at that. I have found success in hiring veterans, both disabled and non-disabled. And it's been just wonderful for me in my business career. So where I am now, I'm at that point of finishing my autobiography, as Eve knows. Matter of fact, last chapter is done this weekend. I have a New York publisher already wants it, and I have 5 other books on the table to write. I'm doing more writing and not public speaking. And I still do stuff with the charity, handle inquiries every once in a while on self-employment. And I'm looking for a job. Do I have a job out there? I want to thank you for letting me verbalize my resume to you, give you a little bit of background about me. And I hope what you've learned today, that your attitude, your first impression of what you see has changed. So never judge anybody by what you see first. And hopefully either you like me even least now because of that first impression, or I've enhanced that first impression you had. And that there could be a chance that I could work at your company and be your boss. Thank you very much.
Irvin, thank you so much. You're amazing. And you know what he did tell me? He goes, Eve, I got to tell you this morning, I'm going to tell everybody that the Bible's wrong. It wasn't Adam and Eve, it was Irvin and Eve.
You're lucky I'm married. And she's a New York girl. She has a heck of a left swing. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
Anything to add, Judy, before it's
No, thank you so much for coming. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, Irvin. And Ellie, do you want to go get with you guys?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions? That's what I wanted to open up to. Questions for Irvin.
After Vietnam, were you legally blind, or did it happen immediately after your accident?
I'm sorry, say that again.
After, she wants to know if you'll go on a date with her. She said after when did you become blind?
A total blind in '84. And my business successes were after total blindness. I came back legally blind and a number of other medical issues.
He does TED Talks. He's keynoted for American Airlines. You guys Google Urban Miyares and you'll find a lot of amazing. The question in the back there? Did I see a hand? No. Yes, ma'am.
What kept you going after you felt like giving up?
What kept you going after you felt like giving up?
PTSD kept me going. There's a positive side. It's called PTSD growth. And they're just now doing studies on it. But I've been talking about it for years. If it wasn't for my personal stress in life, I would have quit a long time. It was easy. Hey, you quit, you get disability benefits, you get Social Security. That's a nice paycheck. However, now I'm over 66 and I'm collecting retirement Social Security. I didn't know how much money I made. It's nice. Yeah, we all have to, in life, we all have issues, and they can either be positive or negative, and you always say there's always a silver lining and blah, 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 blah. You just got to keep on moving forward. That's all it is. Whether you're having a financial crisis, a relationship crisis, a health crisis, keep on. I have some medical issues right now that are quite significant. Doctors told me I have to lead a sedentary lifestyle. I stopped public speaking in 2012. I generally did 50 to 100 speeches a year around the country, not related to veteran stuff. Marketing, management, running companies, and those type areas. So I'm here too because of my affection for Eve.
And you know what? You talked about how the doctors told you you had 20 years to live.
Yeah.
Where are they today?
They were all dead.
They're all Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Erwin, we talked a lot today about how to help military transition into the civilian world, which they've been part of all the whole way. But how do you see businesses helping with that opportunity gap to let them see what else is out there so that they can see many different opportunities, not just the career that they had when they were in the military?
You know, I do a seminar on transition. The VA has asked me to do seminars around the country on transition and PTSD. And it's called the dog and the cat theory. And Eve, could I briefly go over it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think you know some of it. As civilians, we're all dogs. We're all friendly. It's by our nature. Of course, some of us are growlers, and but generally we like a pet. We're friendly. We see a crowd of people, and we want to be there, our tails wagging. And then we go into the military, and they teach us to be cats. Now, you got to know the personality of a dog and a cat. A dog will be around people, likes to be in the middle, right? You get a group of people, the dog will be around sniffing and looking for a pet from everybody here and scraps of food. Where would a cat be? High in the corner, up high. Dogs will always repeat their path. If a dog goes out a door, the front door, it'll always come in that front door. A cat goes out that front door, it's looking for another way to get back in. And I could go into more details of the psychology between dogs and cats and how it relates to us. So as cats, we're trained as cats, because that's survival. If we're dogs, we're going to get killed in combat. Oh, everybody's going to love us, but we won't be in service that long. We got to be cats. We got to have 9 lives. We got to always hear explosion. Anybody here that's been in combat knows what I'm talking about when I say that if something happened right now, someone came into this room, we already have a thought of what we would react like and do. I know where I'm going. I'm going to go right by Eve. So it's that. So here we are. We're trained, sometimes 6 months, sometimes a year, to be cats. And then we come back, and then we get papers saying you're a dog now. And we got to go back into society with all you dogs, yet mentally, emotionally, our friendships are that of a cat. So the transition is difficult. And people ask me, how did I transition? I said, I'm still transitioning 48 years later. It doesn't stop. We still have that memory, the feeling, those that are no longer with us. It's something we know the public does not relate to. So we have to learn how to be in your world again and be a dog and try not to be a cat. And the best way of doing it with PTSD, we're workaholics. We tend to come to work early, leave late. The job is done. We focus on that. The mission, you've all heard this before, about the advantages of most veterans. Not all veterans are the same. I'd be a lousy employee if I had a boss over me. I know what my personality is. Now it changes at home. My wife's the boss, but that's what it is. So I hope I explained it better. There's a seminar I do on the dog and the cat in life, and the whole personality of dogs versus cats. So I think it's an understanding by the general public. Right away, especially today, they always think that the veterans coming out, you hire the PTSD, the risk factor. It's going to cause trouble. Not true. Only cause trouble if you don't understand the position of the veteran. Or anybody. Remember, 1 out of 4 in America has a mental illness. So it doesn't have to be a veteran to upset them. However, you have a better chance with a veteran of not being that much of a risk versus the general public that you don't know has a psychological problem. or something they can't handle.
Excellent. Time for one more question? Yes, he's available for autographs and pictures afterwards. I'm his agent. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
Judy, you got something?
Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.